So good morning and welcome. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and I'm welcoming you to the Sunday morning celebration for the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast. And if there's anybody watching this later on this week that's never been to a Center for Spiritual Living, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you, no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles, whoever you are and wherever you may find yourself on your spiritual journey, you're welcome here. So to begin our service this morning, Reverend Jenna Watkins is going to open us with a prayer, and then Ed Powers, one of our congregants, is going to do a spiritual reading.
So I invite you to just sit back in your chair, close your eyes, and take some slow, deep breaths. And with each breath, melt into your chair and allow your heart to expand and grow, because we are one heart. And as we allow that expansion within our own heart, we recognize the connection with each and every one of us. We recognize the connection with the one universal love, that presence we call God, or higher source, or universal love. As we breathe into our own heart, we feel that connection. We feel that oneness. And we recognize that we are more than a body. We are spirit expressing through each of our thoughts, our ideas, our actions. And as we merge with the awareness of the oneness, we are led, guided, and directed to our own wholeness, to our own authenticity. I give thanks this morning for everyone watching this, participating, for as we come together in community, we help heal each other and the greater whole. I know that we are blessed as we go into this service, for Reverend Dr. Ron Fox he is always led, guided, and directed to share with us an idea, a thought, an aha that we each need. And as we listen intently, we will get that wisdom that we need to help us go deeper into our own understanding of who we are as human, as community, as spirit. I give thanks for everyone's presence today. I give thanks for I know that we are all blessed in this oneness. And so it is.
You matter. I'm going to start off with a joke and a quote. The joke is kind of nerdy. You matter unless you multiply yourself by the square of the speed of light. Then you energy. That comes from Einstein's E equals MC squared. The quote is from Ram Dass. You are loved just for being who you are, just for existing. Universal intelligence created you. So it most wants to be you right now. You are God's last chance to see through your eyes, to hear through your ears, to feel through your heart, and to experience life through you. Your job is to dance your dance. Show God a good time. And if it benefits others, so much the better. Just as universal intelligence created you, you create your life. However, our worlds interact. You read a book, think about it, and begin to think differently. Your world changes. The book had an influence on your thinking and therefore your world. So choose good books and don't let TV influence you too much. Similarly, when I watch and listen to you, you are influencing the way I think, and therefore you are influencing my world. We are each a small part of God, experiencing life
He froze.
through our various filters, itself as you, creating your life via your thoughts. God experiences life through all of us. So living as a part of God, isn't your life perfect and complete as is God, despite what you think of it? If you could only sense how important you are to the lives of those you meet. Most of the time, it takes a crisis for people to tell you how much you mean to them and how much they love and care for you. But know that they love you like that all the time. These are some of my observations. I hope to have a positive influence on you, as will Reverend Dr. Ron Fox's message.
Thank you, Ed. And thank you, Reverend Jenna. So in case you haven't guessed, my title this morning is You Matter. And I want to begin by reading something that I found on Facebook this week. And I don't remember where I found it, to be honest. Here's how it goes. You may think that you are completely insignificant in this world, but someone drinks coffee from the favorite cup that you gave them. Someone heard a song on the radio that reminded them of you. Someone read a book that you recommended and plunged headfirst into it. Someone smiled after a hard day's work because they remembered the joke you told them today, not Ed's. Someone loves themselves a little bit more because you gave them a compliment. Never think that you have no influence whatsoever. Your trace, which you leave behind with every good deed, cannot be erased. So I want to begin with the fable. And the fable is about a monastery that had fallen on very difficult times. The upkeep wasn't as good as it could be when men were leaving the monastery and no new men were joining. So it was a really difficult time. And the abbot of the monastery had a friend who was a rabbi. And the rabbi came to visit one day, and they talked and joked, and the rabbi prayed with some of the members, and he actually spent the night. And the next morning, before he was leaving, the abbot said to him, "Tell me, do you have any advice for me and for the brothers?" And the rabbi said to him, "I don't, but even if I did, they probably wouldn't listen to me. But I do want to tell you that I had a really interesting dream last night. And the dream was that one of you is the Messiah." And the abbot perked up and he said, "Really, who is it?" And the rabbi said, "I don't know. I can't really tell you, but I think you ought to share it with your men." And the rabbi leaves, and the abbot calls them together and tells them the rabbi had a dream that one of us is the Messiah. And each of them begins to look around and look at each other and say, well, could it be him? Or could it be him or him? And because of that, they start to treat one another like they were the Messiah. They reach out more in love and caring and kindness and compassion. And as they do more of that, things change in the monastery. The energy is completely different. And when visitors come, they're amazed and in awe at the beauty and the wonder, and men come and join, and it once again begins to thrive. And all of the men who were in the monastery when the abbot told them that, they all pass on, and nobody ever finds out who the Messiah was, because on some level, they all were the Messiah. And you know, the fact is, when we take people for granted, we can overlook the gifts that they bring to us and to our life. And when we find the Messiah in others, we find it in ourselves. So I don't usually try to do a sad quote, but I read a quote this week that really took me back when I read it, and I want to share it and let you think about it. It's from Mother Teresa, and Mother Teresa said, "One of the greatest diseases is to be nobody to somebody." One of the greatest diseases is to be nobody to somebody. Think about it. Think about that. And when I read it, it honestly stopped me. And then I thought about it, and I thought, you know, but on the other side of that, we all have the power to make everybody somebody. All of us have the power to make everybody somebody. So I want to share with you two learnings I had, two stories I have that are personal to me about that. And actually, they're both really similar, and they both entail my former Wednesday night service when I was assistant minister at a center, and two singers. And the first one, a minister friend of mine, I was the assistant minister at a church in Seal Beach, California, and I had created a Wednesday night service. And we would get between 20 and 25 people a night, which was really good. And one of my minister friends recommended a singer to me. She said, "Wow, this singer is really good. You should book her." So I called the singer, and I did. And the night she came, there was a storm, and we had very few people there. And this singer was really good. In fact, she has since moved to Manhattan and does nightclubs there, does a lot of great stuff. And so at the end of the service, I went to her because I was kind of embarrassed that we had so few people. And I said to her, "Gee, I'm really sorry you didn't have a bigger audience. And you know, I hope you'll come back because we do better." And she said, "Reverend Ron, you don't have to tell me about that." She said, "Let me tell you a story about me." She said, "Months ago, I had a gig in a nightclub in LA, and Becky and I don't remember the name of it. Becky and I have been to that nightclub, and it's really large." And she said that, she said, "You know, it's a really big room." And I had to do 2 shows. And the first show, she said, literally was standing room only because all my friends and relatives came. It was huge, and it was so much fun. And I had a great time, and the audience did. And when I came out for my second show, Reverend Ron, the place was almost empty. If there were 10 people there, it was a lot. And as I was walking to the mic, I said to myself, "You have to do this show as well as you did the first show. You have to put that energy in." And I did. She said, "I really worked at it." And she said, after the show, I was in my dressing room getting changed, and there was a knock on the door. And I opened it up, and there was a man there who gave me his card. And Reverend Ron, he was a record producer, and he was at the second show. And he said, "I loved your work, and I want to produce for you." And she said, he just got done, we just got done, it's not even out yet, producing my first CD. So I know about putting your best out, even when you don't feel like you're doing it for a huge crowd. The second time it happened, it was the same thing. And this singer was a friend of Becky, and still is. And again, I don't remember what it was, but we had a really small crowd. And when it was all over, I said to our friend, I said, geez, you know, you and I both deserve a bigger crowd. You put a lot of work into it and I do. And she said, Ron, let me tell you something. She said, did you notice off on your right-hand side, there was one lone person sitting alone? And I said, yeah, I did. I noticed her because there was nobody else there. And she said, well, that lady called me over after the service. And she said to me that she was so moved by what you did and what I did. She said, when I walked in here, I didn't care if I lived or died. And she opened up her purse and showed me razor blades she had in there. She said, but what you guys did, it changed my attitude. And I'm going out of here feeling much more better about life. She said, so Ron, whoever we did this for, we did it for that lady. And that's what matters. And my point is, you never know who you're going to touch when you reach out anyway. But when you reach out with love and kindness, like the first piece I read, you touch people and you may never, ever be aware of it. You know, Alan Cohen wrote that, you know, in our society, we celebrate sports figures and actors and whomever else, you know. And he said, but in truth, in the long run, it's the people that affect our life on a personal level that really make a difference. And we're never going to read about them. You're never, you know, in my talk, I think it was last week, I said, you know, you're never going to read about the mother who reads a bedtime story to her child, or the father who makes breakfast for his family. So we won't read about those heroes, but they're special because they help when and where they can. And their reward isn't money. Their reward is giving of themselves when they're needed. And what they do makes them feel good inside. Rabbi Harold Kushner said when people ask him, where is God? He tells them that isn't the right question to ask. The right question isn't where is God? The right question is when is God? Because finding God is not about, it's not a matter of being in the right place at the right time, you know, because we teach that all of God is everywhere all at once. So it's not a matter of finding God where we are. Rabbi Kushner says it's the matter of doing the right thing. It's when we make, he said, when we make room for God, we do things that make us more human. He said, let me give you a quote. He said, when we get over being stuck on ourselves, we make room for God. When we get over being stuck on ourselves, we make room for God. Norm Bouchard is a CSL minister in Colorado, and he makes the same point that Rabbi Kushner does in a different way. He said when he was a young kid, when he was a young boy, one day he must have been talking. So you know how kids can go on and on and on. And his grandmother said to him, stop. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to find your belly button and stare at it until I tell you to stop. So he lifts up his shirt and he stares at his belly button until she tells him to stop. And eventually she did. And he said it took him a while to realize what her point was, but he gets it. Her point was that it's not all about you. It's not all about you, that we're all connected, all of us. And by making ourselves the center of the universe and only being concerned about ourselves, we lose opportunities to grow. He said, we're all part of the whole, but we're not the center of it. I love that. We're all part of the whole, but we're not the center of it. We're created to give back, to interact with each other. The actor Will Smith said, I want the world to be better because I was here. I want my life, my work, my family to mean something. If you're not making someone's life better, you're wasting your time. So yesterday, several of us were out having lunch together, and I mentioned that I was going to do a cat story today because I know we've got a lot of cat lovers in our congregation. So here's the story. Barbara DeAngelis, in one of her books, says that she and her husband went on an end of the year vacation to an island. And she didn't say where it was, but I'm guessing it was the Caribbean. And they rented a cabin. And when they unpacked the first day, she was sitting out and she heard a faint meow. And she looked around and she said, there was a tiny, scrawny little cat. She said the cat was more skin and bones than it was fur. And the cat was shaking. And Barbara guessed that the cat was hungry. So she went and got some food and found a bowl and put it out. And the cat, it took the cat forever, it seemed, to even be willing to come out. And when she did come out, she wouldn't go by the food at first. And finally, she ate the food. When she did, she really scarfed it down. And in the time that they were there, the cat got more and more comfortable with Barbara. And Barbara got more and more attached to the cat. And her husband kept reminding her, we can't take this cat back and back with us. And the cat eventually would come out and actually rub against her legs, etc. And so on day 10, when she was leaving, Barbara felt terrible because she knew she couldn't take the cat back to the United States. And she even thought for a while, maybe it would have been better if I hadn't reached out to her, because now she felt my caring and it's going to be terrible for her. And so what Barbara did, she wrote a long note and left it for the next tenants, asking them to take care of the cat. And then she said she heard a voice in her head. And I want to read to you what she said the voice in her head said to her. It said, you showed her what kindness was for the first time in her life. She'll always take that with her. She'll always know she was loved. Love is never wasted. Think about that. Love is never wasted. And Barbara said, she said, you know, I'll never know what happened with that cat, but I do know we made a difference in each other's life. Edgar Cayce said, our life here is not about waiting around to die and go to heaven, but our life here is to bring about an awareness of spirit in our lives and in our surroundings, wherever we may be. There's one God, and all of us are children of that God, and therefore we're all connected to one another. And you know, I did not take this talk title from Howard Falco, but Howard Falco wrote in one of his books that the great message of the universe is you matter, that you're not who you think you are, but always so much more. So I want to share something with you from Robert Fulghum, who I just love his writing. He's funny and he's spiritual and he's deep in a really lighthearted way. So he writes that he was at a seminar once. I think it was a 2-week seminar. And those of you, and all of us have been in a class or a seminar where at the end, the teacher goes, "Does anybody have any questions?" And this teacher's name was Alexander Papaderos. And at the end, the last session, he said, "Does anybody have any questions?" And Fulghum raised his hand and said, "I do. What is the meaning of life?" And I've often thought Papaderos initially probably wanted to choke him, but he said, "What is the meaning of life?" And Papaderos said, "I'm going to tell you what it is for me." So he lived in Greece, and during World War II, he was walking down the street and he saw a Nazi motorcycle that must have been in an accident. And it was glass strewn all around. And he saw a part of the mirror, the driver's mirror. And it was the biggest piece he found. And he picked it up and he took it home with him. And he used, I don't know, some kind of sandpaper or whatever, and he smoothed it out and made it into a piece a little bit bigger than a quarter. And what he would do as a child, he had a game he would play with it. He would shine it into dark places and see if he could bring the light to them. And the game that he played was to go in more and more places that were harder to get to and see if he could make the light shine. And then he said to Fulghum and the class, and I'm going to read to you what he said. He said, "As I became a man, I grew to understand that this was not just child's play, but a metaphor for what I might do with my life. I came to understand that I am not the light or the source of the light, but light, the light of truth, understanding, and knowledge is there, and that light will only shine in many dark places if I reflect it. I am a fragment of a mirror whose whole design and shape I do not know. Nevertheless, with what I have, I can reflect light in the dark places of this world, into the dreary places in the hearts of men, and change some things in some people. Perhaps others may see and do likewise. This is what I am about. This is the meaning of my life." I want to close with something else from Barbara DeAngelis. So imagine, I think she lived in a place in California, right by the water. And she wrote that one evening it was dusk and she was looking out and she sees fog floating in from the ocean, and her dog was sitting on her lap, and she's taking all of this in. And what she's thinking to herself is, it'll always be like this here, even in 40 or 50 years, when I'm no longer alive to witness it. The same fog will appear, the same sea will be here, the same moon will rise, the same trees will send their shadows over the lawn. All of this will be here, and I'll be gone. And she said it made her feel small. It made her feel insignificant. And she asked herself, what can possibly have meaning in my life? What can I do or accomplish that will make any sense? And she said, then she remembered that all she is supposed to do, she's doing right now. And this is what she wrote: to stop, sit back, and witness the glorious spectacle of creation, to receive the privilege and blessing of being alive, to be fully present right here, right now, to love, to be grateful, to celebrate life moment by moment. What more could we ask for? God bless you. Have a wonderful week. And thank you for being here this morning.